and whoever else might be listening, once again, I'm going to try to tackle weather modification and hopefully inform you about some stuff that we haven't been privy to know. I would like to start with running a clip. Running a clip of what we have been told in the past are contrails, condensation trails. But there are those of us who have looked at these things and said, no, wait a minute. Now, I know what a contrail is. That's not a contrail. A condensation, water vapor, sheer water vapor that just evaporates when it comes out the rear end of a plane. That's not what we've been looking at. They became so prevalent and so abundant in the skies above me, I just realized that we're not getting the whole story. When they try to tell us this is something besides water vapor, there are those of us who just simply won't believe it. And it goes on and on like this across this country and in so many parts of the world. People are asking themselves, what is this? What are they doing? And those of us, again, who have said there's something here, we're going to call these things chemtrails because there's something in them besides just vapor. And we have been mocked. We have been called ridiculous conspiracy theorists, anything to keep people from talking about this. Well, it's vindication time. Okay, you can take, I think people have got the idea, and I've no doubt that people have seen these things in the sky themselves. So, you can just clear that for the time being. And I will, again, let those of you out there who have been, I would say, on my side, or at least informed like I have, that it is vindication time. We now know people are coming literally out, the people who are doing this. And it's right out there. You can find all the information you ever wanted to know about. Oh, well, actually, you can't find all the information you ever wanted to know, but you can certainly find enough information to verify the fact that these are chemical trails and not condensation trails. So embrace the word chemtrail. It's in your environment, it is there, and it will be for a long, long time. And the next thing I want you to do to be able to, let me get this back so you can see it. If you have a computer, use that computer and just type in Weather Modification Association. You might bring that page up if you would. And you will just see it's right there for anybody to look at. And you can look at the sites underneath Weather Modification Association. Again, all I wanted to show is people that page is on the internet, that category, Weather Modification Association, and that you can go into that category. Search the sites under there. If you can get rid of that, that would be fine. And find that weather modification is being done by states, by counties, by water districts, by individual corporations, and they have been doing this for years and years. You can even go onto that site or that category, search around, and maybe find yourself a job as a pilot in one of these weather modification organizations, so you too can spread that stuff, whatever it is, up there in the sky over our heads that comes down that we breathe, that we get to have no say about whatsoever. We just have to breathe it. And the fact that they have totally lied to us all of these years, telling, oh, no, it's nothing but condensation, not to worry. And come to find out, just a small assortment of what we have been breathing over the years if all things dry ice. Barium, silver iodide, and aluminum. Now, I don't think there's anybody out there with half a brain that would want to be breathing in any of that stuff, particularly aluminum, since it has been so closely linked to Alzheimer's. But oh well, we don't get a choice. We just have to keep breathing. Of course, well, I guess we do have a choice, but quite frankly, that choice does not appeal to me. And another thing that you can look at under Weather Modification Association, just click around there looking for sites to see. You can see project locations map. Google Maps. You can look at a map of the United States with all these little dots on it. You can go to a dot, click on it, and they will tell you the weather modification project in that area. There is even one for Santa Barbara. Now, this is really powerful stuff, particularly in the sense that they have told us for years and years that we're wild and crazy people to consider that this could possibly be happening. And now it's just written down there for any old body to see. And, you know, that's kind of sad. But again, like I say, a few years ago, I started noticing all of these trails in the sky, and then I started realizing there's something going on here that they're not telling us. And then I found in my searching for collage material, I like to do political stuff, I found a stack of something called United States Naval Institute Proceedings, stack of books from the 60s. This is just a copy, of course. And in the copy from July of 1960 was this article. Quite an eye-opener. You know, you get your two over here and you get your two in here, and you know, and you start adding up to something you perhaps really don't want to know. The name of this article, Weather Control and National Strategy. It has been the absolute intention of the military to take total dominance of the weather. Not make it rain here or there. Take total control of the weather since 1960. This is not a joke. These people don't play around. The fellow who wrote this article, retired Rear Admiral, and one of the, never mind me, I'm just looking at something over here, so if you see me look over here, you just know that I'm referring to something that's not that important, as long as you hear me talk. One of the quotes in this book, or in this article, the question is no longer, will mankind be able to modify the weather on a large scale and control the climate? Rather, the question is, which scientist will do it first? Think about that. And also, again, having found the 1960 article, I realized that if you want to learn anything, perhaps the best place to go is old material. So I started trying to find as many old books, old encyclopedias as I possibly could. And it dawned on me that I have some encyclopedias right there sitting in my place, right across the way from me. I said, why don't I check that out? If you have a World Book Encyclopedia dated from 1971 to 1979, you will find this paragraph at the end of the weather entry. Yeah, it says you go to W and you go to weather, and at the very end, you will see this paragraph. Meteorologists in all parts of the world study cloud seeding and other ways of controlling the weather. They hope to learn how to alter the paths of hurricanes, control the evaporation from the seas. That means to be able to control the amount of moisture that is suspended in the air. thaw out frozen areas near the North and South Pole. Let me repeat that one. Thaw out frozen areas near the North and South Poles. And change wind patterns over the land. Seen any wild and crazy winds of late? But in 1981, I found this book as well. It's the same World Book Encyclopedia, but it's a 1981 edition. In 1981, they saw fit to toss that. To go, oh, I don't think we need to be telling people this anymore. No, that business about melting out the poles. Shh, let's keep that under our hats. So all of this stuff just disappeared after 1981. Which, you know, hopefully is a little bit telling, because they are trying desperately, up and down, right and left, to sell us global warming. And one of the biggest scares that they are giving us is how fast the North Pole is melting out, how fast the glaciers are melting out. Oh my goodness gracious, we're all going to die. Somebody's got to do something. And you know, just some food for thought here. How is anybody, we don't know who they are, what their purposes are, just going to take control of the world's weather? Are you like me? Would you go out on the street and you say, I don't think so? Particularly people in third world countries who already know that nobody cares about them anyway. Of course you wouldn't want that. So if you're going to take control of the weather, you have to sequester this information. And like I say, this was from 1960, and we have been in the dark all of that time. And knowing how the world would feel about somebody out there taking control of the weather, the only way you're going to get the world willing to go along with that is to offer up enough catastrophe, enough crises, weather, oh my God, it's gone mad, we have to do something. How can we stop this horror that has, you know, nature is just forcing down our throats? It's going to kill us all. The only way you're going to get people to accept weather control is to make them believe that they're all going to die otherwise. I've already heard 3 programs where you have the new geoengineers, a new branch of science that mucks around with Mother Nature, waving their finger at us and saying, oh my goodness, we must be given permission to go up there and take control. Otherwise, it may be too late for all of mankind. Well, now, I'll just absorb that for a second. There's a story in here, again, 1960, but they recount a tale from 1957, 58, when Russia came to the United States and said, hey, I've got this great idea. Why don't you and us, the US and the Soviets, do this joint venture and dam the Bering Strait? We'll dam it up, use nuclear reactors, pump relatively warm water into the Arctic, and melt out the ice. You see, the Soviets believed that they could extend growing seasons in Siberia, open up some ports by doing that. The United States apparently didn't want to do it because they thought it would push cold weather, at least in the short term, over to the Canadian side, and some uppity up in Russia decided, well, maybe we don't really know enough right now to be doing this. But it was interesting that on down in that story, the United States is not going, melt out the Arctic? Are you out of your mind? We'll all die. Of course, that's what they're telling us now. We'll all die. You can't be, you know, this ice is going to melt. What are we going to do? Oh, my gosh. Well, no. No, at that time, they didn't seem too excited about it at all. went on to say many Soviet weather problems could be solved through Arctic melt, accomplished by the release of thermonuclear heat, one, dusting techniques, two, or the launching of a satellite carrying a thermonuclear reactor. The satellite would be put into a highly elliptical orbit that would approach the Earth only in the vicinity of the North Pole. So not only were they not worried about the Arctic melting out, they had already figured out ways to do it. And now, this business, the second technique they mentioned there was dusting techniques. This is ancient, third world people have been using it who live in areas of glacier but don't have fresh water. You put, it's just as simple, it's just like it sounds. You put a dark, sprinkle of dark substance on the glacier to make it melt faster. Been around for a long, long time. And again, that's one of the techniques that big countries have been using to melt out ice for decades. We're not supposed to know that. But it's going on. I mean, like I say, that was one of the things that was mentioned here, that Russia could do that. Yeah, no problem. There's a book called Glacier from 1982 that recounts instances where the United States, Russia, China, and Brazil, another country, and anyhow, all experimenting, all jumping black crap all over the glaciers to see what happened, to melt them out. Nothing unusual at all. As a matter of fact, Japan is trying to create glaciers. They're literally trying to make glaciers start in Japan. They want the glaciers in Japan. It just sounds so far out. It's just so hard to wrap your brain around it. You've got to give yourself a little time to let this stuff soak in. But the fact that all of this black stuff has been dumped on glaciers, on Arctic ice, for years and years, and nobody said a thing about it. You can go back. I looked for old pictures. I've got like this one right here. You can't see it. From 1989, where the ice is all broken up, and then it moves around and reconfigures itself. Part of the ice is white, and part of the ice is black. A little experiment right there for you to investigate. But the amazing thing about it, again, is that all of this information is right there, pictures of all this black stuff on these glaciers, and nobody says a darn thing about it. Until only recently, scientists are going, oh my God, this is horrible. This black stuff, it's melting out the glaciers, sometimes 50%, faster than they should be melting. And only in the last 2 years, they're going, higher on fire. What is all this black carbon, which is the substance of choice for years that they've been doing this stuff with? Oh my God, it's your fault, people. You have created all this pollution and it's fallen on the glaciers. But again, nobody said anything about it for years and years. And I'd like for my friends in the booth to play the next clip about the glacier. And I want you viewers to look at this.
Bright blue pools
and if you could bring the sound up on.
Warmer summers means the ice sheet and its glaciers are melting more on the surface.
Talking about
how unusual is a river of this size, this far back?
Look at them. Look at these men walking on
the water falls through deep cracks and holes to the base of the glacier and then appears to act as a lubricant, allowing the glacier to flow faster.
Flying over it is impressive, but it's perhaps only by walking on it that you begin to understand why scientists are amazed and increasingly distressed to learn that so much ice is melting so quickly and flowing so fast towards joining the world's oceans.
Scientists are playing catch-up in Greenland. The changes here are so rapid, they're not accounted for in current modelling on climate change. The UN panel on climate change predicted in 2007 that global sea levels could rise by up to 60 centimetres this century.
Not accounted for. All of these wonderful scientists cannot look at those pictures and see all that black stuff. We can't account for this. I don't know what could possibly be happening. Of course, they couldn't figure out what was going on, and with all those trails up there telling us, oh, we're crazy out of our mind. There's nothing going on. Move along. Nothing to see here. And of course, there is. There's plenty to see. It just has to be sequestered until, the preponderance of weather modification is in place. There's nothing we can really do about it. But that said, a lot of people will go, come on, who on earth would be interested in controlling the weather? Now that's a whole other can of worms, and a pretty impressive one at that. I've already, presented how the military is so sure that it's going to be in control of the weather in the next, I don't know, they're thinking about 2025, I believe, total control. But, so you have the military, and one thing that has been stated is that if you have weather control, you no longer need a political upheaval to go into and occupy a country. Now you can use a, quote unquote, natural disaster to send the military in. You have wonderful Wall Street. Goodness gracious, they never get involved in anything you can make money off of, huh? And, the only way they seem to be thinking in terms of solving this problem is cap and trade. Let's get some cap and trade going. Well, cap and trade is just a financial scheme. Precious little different than all of the nastiness that it's been going on the last few years. And they also want to add on to us a carbon tax. You can bet your bottom dollar those smart meters they're sticking on everybody are going to monitor your carbon footprint so they can charge you for breathing practically. And the most heinous thing I thought was just like, got the nerve of these people. They feel like if you can control the weather, you can control commodity markets. And besides some big countries, big hedge funds are buying up huge swaths of land in Africa for agricultural purposes. So if you can add to that land the ability to control the weather, you've got commodity markets in your pocket. And they are counting on that. You have your wonderful resource companies. I wonder why they would be interested in something like, melting out the Arctic. Well, son of a gun, look at this. Can you believe it? We've got an Arctic land grab going on. Now that all this ice is melting, you have all of these oil and gas leases that are popping up here in the Arctic. They're already starting to drill off Greenland where they could not drill before. Now they can move these resources too. Couldn't move it before. Can now. And of course that will open the Northwest Passage. How many hundreds of years have people wanted the Northwest Passage open? There'll be a direct route from Europe to the new wonderful trading partner of China. And then of course, and of course, I forgot to mention that you have even more riches in Antarctica. They're already working on that to bust everything out of there. You have your scientists, sort of like the Manhattan Project. It's like, oh my gosh, I want to be God. The number of scientists who have glommed in on this. The scientists, they say, the scientists agree. The scientists out of NASA, the same people who are doing this, oh yeah, they agree, of course. There were I have all sorts of old information who are going, I don't think so, this global warming, I don't know. But they don't get the platform. It's the James Hansen, Bill McKibben, these are the guys, they have literally given carte blanche to sell the idea of global warming. And of course, elite power. The uber power at the top, where all of this stuff comes together. The psychotic people who recycle through history time and time again, who believe that it is incumbent upon them to rule the world. And let me assure you, if you can control the weather, you've got a step on controlling the world and the people in it. So I'm hoping that there's so much information here. I usually overwhelm people totally, and then they're lost forever and ever in the murky mire of information. But I hope you take some of this information, particularly like check out Weather Modification Association and do some research for yourself. Because once you start looking at this for yourself, you internalize it much better. And it starts to make a lot more sense than some lady just babbling, on and on on TV. But let's see. There was, since time is short, if you could just go to the last clip, and if we could see the ring around the sun. This is, again, one of those things that they're trying to sell us. Oh, it's been there forever. Not to worry. It's just natural. I went down on State Street on the 3rd of last month. There are people gawking, going, what the devil is that? You can see that's from Yemen. People all around the world posting these things on YouTube going, what the dickens is this thing? If it were a natural phenomenon, it would be recorded in literature, it would be in art, it would certainly be in mythology, in photography, for sure. But it's not. It's not at all. And we're supposed to believe that, hey, this is just natural. But somehow it coincidentally shows up when all the trails are around. And the one on the 3rd, the first time it showed up was in 2 huge trails that came together. There's something in those trails that create that ring. Well, now I've babbled you blind, perhaps, so I guess maybe I should give you a break and let you go. And, oh, wait, before I do, just one more thing. I'll have to stuff this in real quick. When I talk about weather modification, again, these are the very little guys, the states, the counties, et al. You need to also check out something called HAARP. This will give you an introduction to some of the stuff that is the really big boys are doing. Mucking around with the ionosphere, making it do things that Mother Nature probably wouldn't approve of. But quite frankly, I'm rather fond of my Mother Nature, and I would rather leave her in charge of my weather. But I don't know that we are going to get that much of a choice. But we do need to start becoming aware. Thank you. Oh.